here with Matt Barnes, former NBA player, current AAU coach, current podcaster, current um, social justice guy I see sometimes. But now, how's it going, Matt?
Everything is good, man. We
Yeah.
spoke to earlier, kind of getting back to normal after the fires. The fires were kind of close to our place. We had to evacuate for a while, but kind of trying to get everything back to normal.
Yeah, I'm glad everybody's safe.
Yeah, I
Matt's
appreciate
on
that.
double duty, so we're gonna
Yeah,
hear Matt and Little Man as well.
yeah, he's right here.
No, so with you as a coach, is it different nowadays in terms of how you have to interact with the kids versus
Yeah,
how your coach interacted with you on
yeah.
the way up?
Oh, absolutely. I think obviously we were raised different. I was born in 1980, and everything coming up for me was tough love from my dad to coaches. It was kind of the coach's way or the highway, and now it's really almost on some levels it's the kids' way or the highway. You know what I mean? You really have to be conscious of not only what you say but how you say it.
Okay.
For the most part. But I've been lucky enough to, coach my I've been coaching my boys for since I retired in 2017, and coaching a majority of our players for, a good amount of that time as well. So I'm still someone that I don't, what I mean, because I'm coming from a good place. I don't watch my mouth all the time. You know what I mean? I really kind of
Okay.
feel like I'm helping them build their foundation to go to high school, to go to college, and you're not always going to have, a coach that's going to cater to you. A lot of these kids are really catered to, at a younger age. So, I mix old school discipline, morals, and values with kind of a new school way of trying to communicate with these kids.
And that was going to be my question. Like, what's the best, in your opinion? What would be the best method, right? Because I know we can't do what we used to do, but I guess you used a blend of some of the tough love, but then some of the you've got to adjust because the kids are just different nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to adjust, but again, I've been thankful and lucky to have, my twins are 16 now, and I've been coaching them since they were 8 and 9. You know what I mean? So again, I've kind of established, my style and the way I coach, and again, I rarely have to yell at the kids anyway. It's more that when these
Okay.
kids come to our program, they want to play hard and they want to work and they want to learn. So I've been really lucky from that standpoint of being able to just, it's not a ton of, you know maybe daycare. It's more like, hey, I have a chance to play for a former NBA guy that's passionate about this. Let me take this opportunity to learn and better myself and better my game.
Okay. And from you coaching the boys in AAU for a number of years, right? You had the opportunity to do MSCS twice, but not only that, you traveled and played a number of different teams. So the question is, in your opinion, what's the difference between the West Coast style of basketball and AAU that is, and then as you travel and you play the other guys, is there a difference? And if so, what is it in your opinion?
I think it's really even back since when I play. There's always kind of been a stereotype of West Coast like skill but soft. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
light skin but soft, or whatever the situation. And this is all the way back to, late '90s when I was playing AAU. So I always keep that in mind because when you go across the there's and really there's not, it's more now, but I would but I remember when I first started coaching the Twins team, I asked the parents, do you guys want a fun weekend team, or do you guys want to try to compete and become one of the best teams in the country? And they said we want to compete. So along that way we lost some kids, but I always, out of my own pocket, I'm traveling these, 10, 11, 12 year olds across the country to play the best kids from Florida,
Yeah.
from New York, from wherever we can get that smoke from. So we were one team, and again, I'm being conscious of what the old stigma was, understanding that a lot of teams, I have a bunch of light skinned kids with curly hair. And I had to kind of put that like, hey, these dudes are going to come for us. So we got to be ready. We got to protect ourselves. We got to protect our teams, and we got to be dogs. And, that was the mentality I played through with my whole 15-year NBA career. So, installing dogs and raising young dogs and kind of having that mentality to me was more important than anything else. Because skill wise, we're probably one of the most skilled teams, and California's a very skilled state, but the old knock is always been soft when you come from Cali.
Okay. And so did the guys naturally have that, or was that you just consistently putting that into them
I
while you're
think a little bit of
practicing and
both. A little bit of both.
okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, I was fortunate, with the twins to, I think my dog came from my upbringing. Like I didn't have anything. Everything was a grind. Holy shoes and holes. I didn't get no new shoes until the holes in my shoes started becoming holes in my socks. But my twins grew up behind gates and could pick whatever shoe they want to go to private school. So it was that thin line of understanding who you are, where you come from, but also it's a mentality. And I instilled that mentality in the twins early on. And there's a handful of kids on the team that had the mentality, and then there's some that just didn't. And we were able to kind of somewhat install just the mindset. You may not be a dog, but your mindset has to be on point and has to be right. And I was able to accomplish that.
Okay. And with AAU, right? You were a coach and you were a nationally ranked team, but you had some players that were ranked at the time. How do you avoid, if you could, how do you avoid making promises, right? Like when he comes here, he's going to start or he's going to get
Yeah.
this much time. So as a coach, how do you avoid that?
I just don't. I don't do it. You know what I mean? I started off with the small program at G1, and it was a local faith-based group out of the valley. And again, we graduated to in eighth grade, we won your national championship. So,
Right.
but now in high school, it's more the politic and who's getting this and who's getting money game, and you may end up losing some kids in some situations. But again, I'm just very upfront and honest with the parents about this. Whoever plays hardest is going to play the most. The best players are going to
Okay.
play the most. And I think, obviously having twins and being a father of twins, like some people might think, he's going to favor his sons, but I feel like if I favor my sons, I'm doing them a disservice because I'm not always going to be their coach. So they go along the same guidelines as everyone else. At one point, one was starting and one was coming off the bench, and
Right.
until the other one earned his way into the starting lineup. So, I just want to teach my kids and my players just the mental grind that comes along with this physical game, because I feel like so much of the game is won and lost in between the ears, especially with this younger generation.
Right. And we're going to get back to some of that, some of the twins, the differences, right? And then how you kind of dealt with that. But you've been with you mentioned G1. Now you're with Paul George Elite, and you were with West Coast Elite, I want to say, for just a season or a half of a season. But
Hmm.
if you taking the names out of it and just looking at the organizations in general as you're around it, what are some of the things that you think that the programs could do better for the kids in terms of having a better environment or making AAU better as a whole from but starting with the program standpoint?
I mean, it's just tough. It's such a tough situation now. I've been fortunate to land in, from all aspects, has been a solid program with Paul George Elite. But you have to keep in mind this is still a business, and it's people play it that way and move it that way. So I try not to get caught up in the politics of it. But again, I'm a basketball mind, and you see the influx of European players coming over in college and particularly in the pros with they're more ready to play than our kids are ready to play. So we play to we'll practice once or maybe twice a week if we're lucky to play 6 games on the weekends, and they'll practice 5 to play 1 or 2 games on the weekend. So I just feel like the teaching is not where it really needs to be. I think it's all about accolades and trophies and rankings over here and over there. I feel like they're really learning the game. They're learning how to play in space. They're learning how to play without the ball. I think American kids are probably more skilled than we've ever seen, but I feel like they lack IQ because of, all their training is individual one-on-one, head down,
Right.
patting the ball around and doing all these kind of stuff instead of understanding how to play out of the pick and roll, pick and pop, the slice cuts, the 45 cuts, the flares, the screen. So, when I teach my kids, I teach them more concept and team ball because I've been blessed to coach, Gene Roebuck since I don't know, 6th grade, and he's probably a top 5 sophomore in the country. And he's someone who's
Right.
gone through the ups and downs of I need the ball in my hands all the time, to understanding like, okay, when the ball's in my hands, let me be effective, but also let me understand how to play as a screener. Let me understand how to play as a pin down and pop guy. So again, I want to teach my players all aspects of the game because I think, there's just a lot of one-on-one and selfish basketball being played, and I want all my players to have an IQ of the game and understand how to fit in any situation or any with any coaching style.
No, that's good stuff. And so you quickly touched on how one of the twins was starting and one wasn't. They're obviously different, not that much, right? Just knowing both of them. but they have some differences. So
Yeah.
when you were training them, right, as you were, did you train them coming up, or did you send them to outside?
So until they kind of really fell in love with training, and I wouldn't even say, to be honest with you, they're 16. They probably only really been training for like 3 years. Like there'd be times where we
Okay,
go get shots up, but until they really said like, "Dad, I want to train," I got them a trainer probably at 13, maybe. So I let their trainers do their thing because I love to hear them, have different voices, and just kind of when they started training, everything was similar. But as they've continued to grow, like Isaiah's 20 pounds heavier than Carter. So they have
okay,
different styles of game. To me, Isaiah is the older twin by 6 minutes. He's 20 pounds heavier. So to me, he needs a strong, his more game is more strength with skill. And then Carter's game is more finesse with skill. So I tell one of them to watch Luca and I tell the other one to watch Tatum because again, although they're
okay.
twins and they look alike, their games and their builds are different. So, there are times where hey, we'll be training or the trainers will be training them. And I even told my trainer that their trainers this like, hey, they're not the same type of player, so I don't want them to always be trained the same way. Give them, multiple looks, based on their skill sets.
I got you. And are there, if you had to just maybe identify like three or four things that you wanted to ensure, right? No matter that both of them had to be able to
Yeah.
have success, because you played at the highest level, right? So,
hmm
what are some of the things that you made imperative? Like, yo, I got to make sure they have this as you're working with the trainers or you're working with them directly.
Mental toughness. First, mental toughness and IQ. I'll put number one. Mental toughness and IQ is to me the most important thing.
How do you train IQ?
Put them in different situations. You know what I mean? Watch games, watch game film, you know, understand how to correct and when to correct. And just seeing the game. And I think my twins got lucky because, my last 4 years in the league, they were in the locker room with Kobe and in the locker room with Steph and KD and CP3 and Blake and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Like my kids, they were spoiled from that kind of standpoint. So all though they were little at the time, they just got to be around good basketball and some of the greatest basketball players ever. So IQ kind of came to them naturally, like and even since they were 9 years old, we had a few sets, but we're running pick and rolls at 9 years old and understanding how to find the pop and the roller and rotating on defense. So I think through my teaching, I was able to get them, have them with a high basketball IQ, and then obviously the mental toughness, to understand the ebbs and flows of the game. After that, I would say shooting.
Okay,
After that, I would say defense, and then after that is ball handling. So sometimes those may change depending on, but to me, the most important part is the mental.
mental. And so you didn't have to, right? You haven't had to this point, but if there was a case where a coach or organization was like, well, I just want Isaiah, but I don't
hmm
think Carter can play this, or
hmm
vice versa,
hmm
would you do that? Would you split the twins up?
So far they haven't been wanted to split up, and I'll most likely coach them until they go to college. When it comes to AU, I've asked them, when it comes to college, are you guys going together? You guys going separate? And from all likelihood, it seems like they want to stay together.
Okay.
They've been starting to get some letters, and they've been for both of them, from
Oh,
obviously
nice.
the same school, but for both, one for Isaiah, one for Carter. So I'll really leave that up to them. I always give them my opinion and what I think is best, but at the end of the day, I want them to decide what they want to do.
And again, going back to the AAU side of things, just kind of giving insight to the youth as they grow up. A lot of individuals they're chasing that MSCS championship, the national championship, or the ranking, but and a team may have it. But would you recommend a kid, should he get on a high ranking team or a national team if he's not getting the minutes and not on the floor that much? Is the
No.
value of practice and being with those elite players in practice
No.
enough?
No, the only way you learn is by experiencing, getting out there and playing. And I can take that from AU or I can take it to high school. Everyone is ganging up in high schools. Daddy's doing an interview right now. Everyone's jumping high schools and trying to make super team high schools, or even, my kids are lucky enough to play varsity as freshmen. But, parents have taught, should my son play varsity? I'm like, well, if he's not playing at least 10, 12, 15 minutes, I would play him in JV and let him play 30 minutes a game, because
Right.
right now it's all about development. High school is all about development. It's not about, I know college coaches don't care if you won and with all due respect, the MSC championship, the night school,
No,
the
I
Peach
understand
Jam,
it.
the high school champion. They don't care about none of that. Are you coachable? Are you a good person and can you play the game? So right now is all about development. I know it's really cliche for, and I think the NBA set the tone when, you're seeing big threes and big fours, and now that everything is always a copycat and trickle down. So everyone wants to jump on the same AU team. And if you're not playing, what is the point? And I'll even extend it to college, when, with Duke getting all these 5 stars all the time, a lot of these guys are going to get, you know, looked over because there's just there's a lot of guys there, so it's just like
Right.
experience and playing is the best way to learn. You can learn some stuff once you get to the NBA and once you get to the NFL and these other sports by sitting and watching these pros, but until you get there you need to be playing as much as possible.
That makes total sense. And you mentioned the super teams, right? Trickling down. You didn't quite have, right? I mean, the eighth grade year was different when you came, but
Hmm.
historically, right? Your group, your core was together. Do you think you saw more success, or it didn't matter that you guys were kind of together in practice all the time versus there was a thing where people were flying kids in every
Yeah.
weekend to play tournaments?
Yeah, we never were really with that. I just don't feel, again, those people are chasing, the hey, to say we won this, but again, I'm more in for the teaching aspect. Again, I was lucky to
Okay.
have, you know I started coaching my boys around fourth grade. So by the time we were eighth grade and 1 year championship, we had been together for 3 or 4 seasons, a core of our team. And there was chemistry and there's consistency. I think the one thing we always lacked was just a real big, you know what I mean? And that's why some of these bigger tournaments, we were always probably the most skilled and best shooting team and best passing team. But you start playing it, when you start playing these national tournaments, there's big kids and sometimes they're your age, sometimes they're not, you know what I mean? So I kind of felt like that was the only thing we lacked, and we searched for that and never really found that. But I think our ability to have that chemistry and really love each other as teammates, and then our skill set, our ability to pass the ball and shoot the ball is what, got us our national ranking, and in elementary and junior high, got us good enough to win your tournament.
And one of the final questions I have, right? Well, I guess I have two. One is that historically, right, my thought process would be don't go to a team that has a father that coaches a player on the team at your kind of position. And how are you able to navigate that, right? In terms of making sure the parents were comfortable and then also still treating the twins fair, right?
It was tough. Luckily early on when they first started playing, they were two of the best players on the team. But as
Okay.
we started, I told the parents, where are we going to go? Are we going to be a fun team, or are we going to be a team that competes? And like I said, I started coaching the boys at 8 or 9, and they didn't start training until like 13. So they went from two of the best kids to, um, you know, two of the better kids to kind of middle of the pack. You know what I mean? And I would tell them, and some of the kids on the team were starting to train at that time, like seriously train. And I would just tell boys, like, hey, I would be doing, like I said earlier, I'd be doing you a disservice if you started because you're my son, or if I'm not gonna not play you the whole game because you're my son. Like, I want my kids to be able to succeed in any environment, so they never get. But I'm also not one of them dads that are gonna, because they're, I'm gonna make a point to, show that I don't play favoritism. If one is playing and one is not playing, or if they're both cooking, they're both gonna play. If they're both playing like shit, they're both gonna sit next to me on the bench. I think at the end of the day, and I think I've showed. Is that right, little man? I think I've showed our parents that, and I think I've even showed other teams, that we play against. Like, there's definitely no daddy ball, because again, at the end of the day, I'm not always going to be their coach, and I'm setting them up for failure, thinking that, hey, I always play for my dad, so I should always be playing here. Like, everything is earned when it comes to basketball. Nothing is given.
And then the final question would be, right? I talk to coaches all the time, right? And the biggest thing they say are the parents are the issue. The
Woo!
parents, the parents, the parents. So as a parent now,
Yeah.
right, removing yourself. Now you were a coach and you're still a
Hmm.
coach, but how do you deal with not coaching Isaiah and Carter? Now they're in high school. So are you hands off? Will you go have a conversation with the coach if you don't, if something doesn't feel right? Like, what's your approach now, having to be strictly a parent?
It's hands off. Again, I'm someone, hands off but hands on at the same time. Again, I'm someone who wants my kids to hear other voices and other points of view, and The Twins are lucky to play for their stepdad, who's Derek Fisher, who, was teammates of the two jerseys behind you, 5-time NBA champ. So,
Yeah.
they go from me in the summertime to their stepdad during the school year. So to me, it's, we both played in the league for a long time and understand concepts and spacing. So it's really, again, the thinking side of the game. The first time that they won't really either be coached by their dad or their stepdad will be college. So I just think it's important to put in input where needed, but also allow them to make mistakes and grow, whether I'm coaching them or just being a dad during the high school season. They know that they can come to me whenever they need to talk or chop up game or want to watch some game film, but I allow them to grow, and I don't try to correct or overcorrect or tell them everything. I just want them to kind of see it on their own. And one thing about the kids is they're really visual, and again, they're IQ and they're thinkers. So a lot of the times they know what they're doing wrong and how to fix it. So that, like, Dad, I haven't shot the ball well, but I kind of feel like my feet have been here. The last is what I've been seeing. So it's them kind of telling me what they think, and then I'll say, hey, you're right, and you're also doing this. So again, whether it's my kids or the kids I'm coaching, I really try to implement them understanding what is going on. Like I remember Kobe said, if you go to a trainer and say, "Hey, what do I need to work on?" Like you're lost. Like you got to tell the trainer, like, "Hey, this is where I feel I'm deficient, and this is where I want to get better." So same thing, when we had Phil Jackson. Phil was someone, he put you on the court if he trusted you, that you had a high enough IQ to understand. So he would let you play through mistakes and let us figure it out as a team. If a team went on an 8-0 run, we're not calling a bunch of different timeouts. Where, hey, okay, they just want a 6-0 run. We've missed two long shots. What's a good set that we can run right now to get a bucket? How do I get Gene and
Right.
Cisco into a play and have Isaiah or Carter come off a pin down? Like I give them those scenarios in practice. And then when it transfers over to the games, because they're still young, but I still want them to learn. So hey, Cisco, Gene, Carter, they made a 6-0 run. What's a good set? And they'll call something out. So I want to teach, but also have them understand enough to be like, okay, well, shit, we've gone over this so much in practice, and we've been in this different scenario. I don't even really need Coach Matt to say anything. Like I know what to run, or I know what to get him into. So I like to
Okay.
challenge them, whether we're practicing or we're playing, as far as just kind of always
Oh,
thinking and
so
understanding the game.
in practice, you're just saying those scenarios, and then they're expected to kind of go run something to see if they can
Different
go get a bucket.
scenarios, we'll play, 2 minutes on the clock, and you're down six. Your ball. What are you going to do? If you score, what are you going to do? Like I'm giving them real in-game experiences in practice and scenarios in practice. Down to 17 seconds. What are you guys going to run? I just called a timeout. What do you think I would have you guys run? And, they would say, hey, I think you would do this, and go out and run it. You know what I mean? So I really want them all thinking the game, knowing every position, and understanding just basketball as a whole. I don't teach kids to play basketball. I teach kids to think basketball.
That's good stuff. Now, so I appreciate you. I know you're busy. You're on double duty, so I definitely appreciate you just chopping up with me. No, I definitely appreciate you, Matt.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no doubt, man. Thanks for having me. Good luck with your show, bro.